stole my thunder, by the way. Thank you, Gavin and Jim, and the folks, for.
Oh, they deserve it like thousands.
I know. The Hank Schewitz and the Bob Gaskowitz, right? All those folks that really supported a lot of, and obviously Jim now helping, was helping, a lot of folks get their mojo and figure out what they wanted to do. But my story is more of the amazing people and the transitional time. I hate that word, by the way. If you're in the industry, you hear the word transitional.
Yeah.
Anyway, but I'll use it here. We were in this two-generation situation, right? We had the Dan McKays, the Susan Montoyas, the Kate Nashes, right? Martin, his last name escapes me right now. And then we had, the younger, not the younger, but the newer folks looking up at these folks that were so focused on stories, right? So focused on telling the truth, uncovering rocks. I mean, turning over rocks, figuring out what's good and bad about campus, right? It was all story focused and with such passion, right? I remember walking through 4 or 5 of them, Matt Giles, all these folks, right? Names, random names that you guys remember, and they were debating all these stories, and it was just astonishing to see how professional they were about it, right? Meanwhile, me and some of the other younger fools were like, oh, look at these guys. Heading back to the back shop because we had to do the dirty work, right? But so those folks I just mentioned were so good about telling stories and uncovering things about the university, right? And they would always say, they wanted to beat the truth in the journal, right? And if we go out there right now, right, like in professional settings, we work in the dailies out there across the country, you'd laugh, right? These students trying to compete with us, right? But these guys actually wanted to, right? And I think Georgette said, there were some pompous folks. I think I mentioned a few of those, some 3 of those names, right? But then that other wave that was watching and learning, right? Ileana's, myself, James, who's not here, James, my woman's not here right now, Ryan Wallace. I think that generation mixed that passion of those folks with what we all are accustomed to now, which is online, right? That's the guy that created the first website for Daily Local, okay, on his own. Yeah. So that guy deserves a lot of kudos right there. But we also, like we said, making mistakes or learning things, right? Jim was cool with us creating them. Internet radio, right? In 1998, we put out the first radio station, right? Short-lived. Probably nobody knows about that, right? Because it was just this intimate thing. But we did that in 98. We also did interactive graphics, right? Who would have thought of that in 1998? What are those things? What does that mean? We did that, right? This guy right here. We grabbed the players and we couldn't get a turntable. Get them rotating, so we were like, shoot, right? So with that ambition, right, like the Chris Parra, right? The documentary photographer, Jacob Schiller, right? They're so passionate about telling the stories differently and wanted, more space so they could tell those stories. So you went from this passion for telling the story to this passion of what is common to us now, right? This new thing. What is it, right? And then also we included some bolder, bigger presentations, or whether we convinced to have it. Maybe we should do more special sections, right? Winter previews and all that, right? But instead of doing like a boring cover, we just fail and do some funky looking cutouts and figure out spot color, right? Can we target certain sales to that? So we were learning without understanding what that meant. Summer of '98, that beautiful, beautiful flag, or masthead, some people call it, right? It has existed since 1998. We created that in the back shop and sat there, and when we were talking about it, we were like passionate about it, right? This is life, right? This is great. And we said, you know what? Let's go talk to Jim. Yeah, we're gonna tell him this is brand new, and we're losing so much editor comes in, a new design editor comes in, it's like, I want to make it mine, it's going to be mine. And we were looking at previous logos, right? There was some god-awful stuff out there. So we were like, can we make something that's going to last, it's going to sit there, and can we convince Jim and Davin, right, that we must keep the branding, right? 18, 19, 20-year-old, idiots are talking about branding without understanding what the heck that means, right? So I'm so damn proud of that. Still there, right? And when somebody has the guts to tell Davin, hey, you know what? It's time to change it. I hope you tell them, well, we're gonna have to change, all our mailers, all our everything, because all the stuff that we put down on here. So just no pressure. But then seeing the leadership from that generation that crossed into that generation, some maybe didn't go into journalism, but I felt like there were so many alphas in that room. So many alphas. Even a Dan McKay who's like very chill, he'd be like, or Zach Shank didn't become a journalist, he tried to do some copy editing, but he was like, no, Ryan, we're not gonna do that. But the leadership was what got me, right? And yes, Kate Nash sometimes was like, no, F that, we're not gonna do that, we're gonna do this, or Martin, push. The point of it is the leadership to me really struck me. Unlike Ilyana, I wanted to be a manager. Shortly after Ryan gracefully stepped off to become the web design manager. And more about that later. So now we have to teach people, right? We have to teach people how to create something in Quark, right? And how do we have to scan the comics. We have to wait for Val to bring back the things. It's a process. And how do we teach these people? So that was my first taste of being a leader, right? And when I went into my first job, and remember, all these other folks, right? The Kate Nashes, the Shits, the Zacks, the Elite, a lot of folks. You saw how good they were about some better than others, but you learn from good and bad manager, right? I think you learn from the very worst. Luckily, I didn't have a very worst at the level. I had a ton of support. And then you go to the first job, right? The Albuquerque Journal. This guy, if anybody knows the name, Joe Kirby, he was the design director there. Eeny little eye guy, like, you give him proof, you look at it. I'm not kidding, it is exactly. So you grab your stuff, right? And you'd be like, Everybody's so intimidated by him. If you know me, I talk a lot of shit, right? I'm a native New Yorker, I'm proud of it. I was born in Peru in a ghetto where we were talking a ton of that, right? So a lot of it is like, how do you stand? So I was like, you know what? Joe's a Michigan State guy, Michigan State's won finals. Hey Joe, let's talk a little bit about when Team Cleves and those guys. Well, Garlos are really good, and we'll see if they have anything to get there. Joe, right?
Yeah, I do. This is an accurate description.
I'm good at impression, by the way.
Very good.
So then I realized, then there was rumors that if you leave the Albuquerque Journal, Joe Kirby and management are a bunch of pricks. They'll treat you like shit on your way out. And I was like, why is that, right? And I asked other folks. I was recruited to move to Atlanta, and talking to Joe. I said, hey Joe, there's this thing that you guys treat people like shit on the way out. Tell me the truth. What's happening here? So Carlos, I heard that. He's like, think about it. You're leaving me in 2 weeks. You're my lead sports designer. I need to get somebody to do your job in 2 weeks. I need you to help me train them. But I also need you to take the shit shifts on a Friday night because that person has to perform 2 Fridays with you here so we don't fail. We can see this person do it. therefore you have to ship Metro / New Mexico and West / whatever other crap was on Friday. It dawned on me, this damn business is about communication. And nobody's asking a damn question, nobody's realizing, me, but it's like, Joe, Joe wasn't a bad guy, right? So going back to the whole leadership thing, I took that out of my pocket. I was like, yep, I want to do that. And then throughout the career, I thought about that. I thought about the leadership that we were asked to show at the level, right? Because, like Isaac said, if we didn't publish it, we had to publish, right? So we got to get it done because it's a business, right? It was up to us to publish it. 1 a.m. Mountain Color comes in, they got to take that thing, right? We can't mess up the ads. We got paid, right? So you might get fired from that job that sometimes took you to LA to see your fiance, right? Or me, that's me, by the way. And I was like, yeah, this is great. Sometimes I think I paid the university so I could work at the local. Right? But again, it was so important for us to understand the freedom that we have there and the decisions we had to make were important because they affected business, right? And I'm a corporate guy, sorry.
It's fine. It's good. I'm proud of you.
I'm the executive design center director for Lee Enterprises, which is the fourth largest media company with printed products, across the U.S. Third or fourth, I don't know. Doesn't matter. We have a bunch of products, and we got a lot of things to mess with. Again, knowing the responsibility we needed to have then, and knowing the responsibility I have now, right? I have to coach, I have to teach. I have two folks right directly below me that I told them, I said, as Patrick said, sometimes, we have a number on our back, right? It's going to be called at some point. So I need to prepare my 2 employees to take over for me. So it's never been God, I gotta survive this thing, screw you, I'm not gonna tell you how to do that. It's more like, here's how you do it, here's how we do it. I'm going to recommend one of you guys take over for me if that ever happens. And you're gonna learn everything, including ugly budget talks, right? We'll talk about that. Ugly decision making. Beautiful things we want to get done. How do we make changes? How do we look ahead? Because it matters until I'm out. I felt like it's important to pass it down, right? So it was really important for us to train our production assistants to know the job. So when we walk away, the next level, the next generation, that global specifically, is ready to tackle that, whatever that is, right? From Kate to Ileana, right? To a guy named Paul to James in sports, all these things were really important. I think that's what we fell in love with what we did, and I think we nurtured somebody else to be ready to take over because we care about this institution, And it didn't matter if it was me working with Val, classified for that 1 semester, right? Or us, in the newsroom. It was an important lesson, and the leadership just comes to mind the entire time. Right? I was never afraid of it, but I am afraid of people that don't know how to manage. I'm afraid of people that hire because that's the next person that's supposed to come up, right?
Yeah.
I'm afraid of the folks don't really think about or lose the feel what it's like to be in the front lines, right? I get a byline here and there, right?
Yes.
But then there are folks who move into these positions and go, let them do it, right? I think we need to stay connected with all levels because then we can understand how, in this unfortunate part of the business, how we transition the right way. That way we don't lay off a ton of great people. But also how to remake this so we can keep the good people to sustain what we've built, right? And I think that's been our mission is I cannot stand terrible managers and I cannot stand people that don't understand that what the decisions they the ill-informed decisions they make affect us for decades, you know? And I took over at the redesign center 4 years ago. My then boss was fired. I'll say it, was fired, even though it was, as you review the business now, when you see somebody say, yeah, they left to future endeavors. What does that mean, right? You know what that means.
Yeah.
And I got the chance to restructure it, right? I got a chance to, and similar to what we did with hiring production assistants, right? We built something that's sustainable, something that made sense so the future generation can say, that makes sense. If I need to change it, I will, but this makes sense. So that's been my mission, and I think a lot of this leadership, understanding leadership by seeing those two generations that I saw, but then also David and Jim supporting it, and guys like Bob Gasaway. You guys had the Hank, I had the Bob. The Bob one day said to me, hey Carlos, listen man, there's a internship at the Albuquerque Journal for design, and it's due tomorrow. The application's tomorrow. Resume and all that stuff. I was going, he was right with me. I was going back home to New York to see my mother in the morning. So it was, noon. We went to the art barn, whatever it was called then. We got a big old portfolio. I still have it. I should have brought it. I still have it. It's pack rat when it comes to work. I submitted it. I got the internship. 10 weeks later, 8 weeks later, they couldn't fill the position. And some folks here said, oh, I got a job. I'll proudly say that I got a job at Beat Out, then graduates, with all the work that I had done at the Lobo. And sure, they paid me less because we're like, oh, you're still in school, but you promised you're going to finish school. Like, sure. So they exploited me, but I was like, you know what, that's all right, because I'm in, right? How many other folks wanted to do that, production? I'm in. Now I gotta go bust my ass to prove that. At that very moment, I didn't need a piece of paper telling me that I did classes, I completed classes. Let's face it, some radio teachers, we were like, we're learning more in Lobo, right? We're learning a lot more, right? That was the whole weird underlying competition that sometimes you had with some of these guys coming back from class going, oh my God, I didn't learn jack. I had this dude sitting there talking about nothing that makes no sense to what we're doing. Right? I will not name names, but what we did there, the leadership, was real world. And I currently also, every summer or whenever I have speaking engagements, I do some teaching at Drake University or some of these places that want me there. We'll do a week-long design, visual storytelling boot camp, right? And the first thing I tell the kids is visual storytelling is subjective, right? Let's figure out what we want to do with it. Let's make it yours. I can clean you up. And like Leslie said, right? You let them figure it out. You give them some pointers. And again, you show them how to be leaders by talking to them the right way, not move over, man. More like, this is great. What are you going for? What's the point? And then I ask questions like, hey, the black type on black background. Tell me about that. But it's that, right? And then we talk through leadership, right? So that's my mission is, how do we make folks to understand how to be leaders? Silent, doesn't matter, how do you think that way? So we can stand up for what's right. How do we tell those stories? But really, how do you stand up for what's right? And articulate it the right way, because in the design field, right, we were the young kids with the drawing circles as some of the copiers say, hey, go back and go draw a circle, and it's like, let's articulate why we want to do this work to the Illies of the world. So the Illies of the world are like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Anyway, so that's what I've taken from it. I love the experience that Gavin called me about, the honor. There's a lot of things that are happening right now with work and life, and everything. And from this group, I don't care could have been a judge at a, international design award, like, oh my God, like you're a judge, or won stupid awards, whatever, because those mean nothing, right? Like, as some of you veterans have won, does it really mean anything, right? At the end of the day, we have a number on our back, right? So that award, doesn't matter. But being recognized by your peers, in something like this, to me is more important than whatever next promotion could come, right? Or whatever award I may win for something, right? It doesn't, whatever bonus, whatever bullshit things people put out there. But the folks that matter, like these two right here, and these two that were with me, that matters to me most because these guys were at the building blocks of what professionally I am now, right? So if I take that's really it. So this means so much to me in terms of professional experience, but it's leadership, So this is amazing hearing you guys talk about this. The leadership in here, amazing. I would say keep going, keep doing, speaking truth, right? So thank you.
Do you have anyone else? I was hoping he could do one more thing. I would like for you to talk about the April Fool's edition because then you can feel uncomfortable with the lyrics when you're there. April Fool's, guys. Right, guys. April Fool's editions, come on. They were
Okay, so
amazing.
I'll open it and then
Right?
Alright, so
This is epic of the Daily Little Time and the shenanigans, and half of the time shaved off Jim's life probably came from the April Fool's edition. The preparation for, the day of, and the day after. Let's go.
we don't know how we heard there was a tradition, right? And everybody tried to do up each other. But you guys always competed with the trips and the journals, right? God, it was this weird hatred, right? Of like, God, these people can't wait. So then we dream up all these stories, and now that we have all this technology, and Ryan, he'll agree with me, was a whiz kid when it came to like graphics and stuff, So he created 2 April Fools. Well, one of them, the most memorable, though, he altered the Albuquerque Journal flag, and we made it the Albuquerque Urinal. The eagle ended up being a cracked toilet leaking. And then the stories beyond that were fantastic.
The stories are so good.
So good.
But I will let Ryan Wallace talk a little bit about a couple of those stories.
I had you up here, I had to.
Well, those stories probably were most emblematic of the back shop, art department, and then the web experience at the Daily Mobile, because we put so much more effort into those episodes. I would talk to Jim the next morning, and he'd be like, why can you not put out this level of quality and detail on the regular issues? To which we said, well, I'm going to do that.
It's not as funny.
But if I can bring it back to art being inspired by content, like the content that the newsroom that you guys would put out in those editions, the creativity, like following AP style to again, probably more attention to AP style in those articles than any others. We were rabid Onion readers. I don't know if everyone's familiar with the Onion, the satirical online newspaper, but just we all worshiped that because it was honestly the precursor to like the Daily Show. It was using satire to speak truth to power, and those issues. I mean, I think there were a little bit of like us taking little jabs at the Journal and the Tribune, like, hey, don't lose sight. I mean, I'm putting my adult lens on it now, but at the time I doubt we were this thoughtful. But I think there was a little bit of like, hey, you all are taking yourselves a little too seriously. And like, are you really leading the craft in this market? Or are we, as a bunch of stupid kids, actually putting in And now then you get older and you become those people, right? But one last thing I just wanted to say, and I'm just want to take this opportunity because I'm really fucking inspired by the people who've spoken today, those I know and those who I met meeting for the first time. I was a real asshole when I was at the middle. I mean,
All the time.
no,
He was very creative and opinionated, but he was a force.
no.
75% of the time.
This force was never awakened
Yeah, I think
professionally.
75 is generous.
Force.
But what I think is really remarkable is that I did not come away appreciating the team until I had lost it. And in the years and decades, and multiple decades since, by the way, I was there 97 to 2000. I was not there to 2001 because I left in a huff because of said assholism. But later on, and as my life progressed, I realized more and more what I had blocked out on in that third year. And how the Lobo was truly a rejuvenating and reoccurring genius cluster. It attracted these, as Hunter S. Thompson said, these, I'm quoting badly, but this ragtag group of misfits and drunkards, but who are deeply creative and passionate, and every time I hear stories afterwards, it's like, holy shit, it kept on going, and it preceded us, and so I've tried over the years, and as I've gotten older, to appreciate that lesson of not undervaluing what I had in the team. And I'd like to think I've built really great teams with that lesson. And these teams have done some remarkable things, not in journalism, but they've built sustainable housing, modular, solar-powered housing. They built over 10,000 acres of renewable energy solar panels. These teams of people, I didn't let them get away. I didn't walk out on them. I didn't, let them not know how much I appreciated their skill. And so I hope you know that I look back on that time with absolute fondness, but absolute regret for not appreciating what I had.
We're good.
Well, it's true.